In this week's episode of Sailor Moon Crystal, things start to heat up with the introduction of Sailor Mars. This week's episode followed in the grand tradition of the previous episodes. They introduced a brand new member of the Sailor Senshi, Jadeite tried this brand new plan to try and get the legendary Silver Crystal and ultimately fails, but at least this week he actually got off of his ass and did something as opposed to letting his putty patrol do all the damn work. Power Ranger references aside, this was a pretty good episode of Sailor Moon Crystal. Nothing too mind-blowing. It's basically just another upgraded version of the cartoon that we saw from the 90s. It looks a little closer to the manga version, and frankly, the backgrounds look a lot better. Aside from that, it's pretty much the same thing. I will say, though, that I am enjoying it the second time around, because when I watched it on Toonami, I didn't really pay attention. But now that I'm actually getting to see it in its original format, it's slightly more interesting. What I will say is, Sailor Mars, introduced this week, and she has fire powers. That's badass. Who would not want to be the fire member of the group? It immediately makes me think of Captain Planet. You remember how every single one of those members had like a different elemental power, and there was that one dude who had fire? Who would not want the fire ability? I mean, come on. I mean, it would suck to be, stuck with the shitty heart ability. I'm just kidding, Mati. You're okay in my book. So the main story this week is that Jadeite is literally driving around Tokyo in a school bus and abducting children in order to lure in the Sailor Senshi so that he can find the legendary Silver Crystal, an object that's so important they don't want to tell us about it quite yet. But the real important thing this week is that they introduced the brand new character of Rei, who eventually becomes Sailor Mars. If there's one thing this series is doing right, and in a way I guess you could say the manga series was doing this right originally, is that every single member of the Sailor Senshi is completely different in terms of looks and personality. She's frigging awesome. She's probably the coolest member of the group, and that's because she's a shrine maiden who apparently has the powers to see ghosts. And that immediately just makes her badass, but the fact that she gets fire powers later on, whew, that's an upgrade. What is kind of interesting about Jadeite's plan is that it's sort of like tied into this Tokyo urban legend about this death bus, which is driving around the city and picking up kids, and it's going up this hill, and when it reaches 6 p.m., it goes into this mysterious dimension and disappears forever. And in a sense, as Rei put it, these children are being spirited away. One scene that I did actually find pretty funny this week was when Usagi got on a bus, she ran into that high school student again, whose name I believe is actually Mamoru Chiba. I'd probably really mispronounce that. But the dude is definitely Tuxedo Mask, it's so friggin' obvious. But the scene is really funny because Usagi gets really embarrassed and she actually picks up Luna and uses her as a shield right against her face, and Luna starts freaking out. And it's honestly one of the funnier scenes of the episode. But as fate would have it, through the use of a lot of ridiculous turn of events, and even Usagi transforming into a flight attendant, they all eventually end up in that secret pocket space and they actually get to have a fight against Jadeite. And Jadeite doesn't use any monsters! I gotta give him some props here, the guy's got a little bit of balls this week. But when Sailor Mars goes through her transformation, which is very similar to the other ones, except of course this one is fire-themed, and of course when it all ends, you see Mars and all the planets behind her and everything, and it does look great. And she only gets to do like one special attack, which is this like exorcism thing. She actually pulls out this like slip of paper with like all the writing on it, and then she throws it and there's this like huge eruption of fire. And Jadeite takes one of these and one of Sailor Moon's like tiara boomerangs to the arm, and he still isn't killed. I'm not imagining that any of these like major like royal guard people to Queen Beryl are even going to be defeated until probably the entire team is brought together. And I imagine we're probably going to go back to the Monster of the Week thing next week. I'm kind of surprised we didn't get one, and I only mentioned Putty Patrol at the beginning of the episode because one of his friends actually mentioned that he makes his monsters from clay, and that's exactly what they do in Power Rangers. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Sailor Moon Crystal? It was another pretty good one. It had a lot of laughs, it had a little bit of action. I was sort of hoping she would be able to do a little bit more, and I was a little disappointed over the fact that, like, as soon as she finishes her transformation, it's Usagi who starts to attack first. It should have totally been Sailor Mars attacking first. I think maybe it would have added a little more weight to that. But she basically just blasts Jadeite with fire and he just runs away just like that. They need to find a way to trap this guy and finish him. And they need to explain a little bit more about the villains. I still don't know anything about these guys, why they're looking for this legendary Silver Crystal, and Luna really isn't talking about anything either. And something that I did find surprising about Luna this week is that in the last episode, she immediately knew who the next Sailor Senshi was going to be, but in this one she was kind of confused. She didn't really know what to expect of Rei until the very end of the episode, and even Rei just sort of like did her own thing when Jedi was freezing her arm, and then she just suddenly got all angry and fiery, and boom! It was crazy. But otherwise, an okay episode of the series, which definitely had better production value when compared to the 90s version, but nothing too spectacular has really happened yet. Otherwise, this was still a pretty good episode of the series, which had a lot of that traditional humor. Usagi is just so stupid, you gotta love her, and Rei just seems like she's gonna be a great character. I can't wait to see the next episode and see who the next member is going to be. So this week's episode is an 8 out of 10. Pretty good, guys. Check it out. Thank you guys for watching my review today. Before you leave, make sure and give this video a thumbs up. It helps us out a lot. And please tell me what you thought about this week's episode of Sailor Moon Crystal. What did you think of the introduction of Sailor Mars? Remember guys, if you haven't already, make sure and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you can see all of our latest anime and manga reviews. We're literally reviewing almost every anime this season. You can also check us out on Facebook and on Twitter. I'll put links for those in the description box below.
Do you like Amazon.com? I know I do. Corey and I now have an Amazon link in our video description box below. And if you go to it and buy anything through Amazon.com, it will support our channel. So bookmark that link, make it happen, and support our channel without having to do a damn thing.
Another great way you guys can help support our channel is by donating directly through our PayPal link in the description box below. We recommend $2 a month, although this is completely optional. But the best way to go about this is by sneaking into your mom's room and taking $2. This way, she won't even notice. And we won't have to shake you up for all of your lunch money. So guys, that concludes this review today. Super Kami Guru 9000. Out.